What's up guys, Levi here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It took me long enough. It's something that has been a year and a bit in the making. Basically because of how big of a step this was going to be for me to take in my life. I wanted to make sure that everything was properly planned out, that everything was going to go as close to how I wanted it to go as possible. So, bit of background. 30 years old, probably a bit too old to be starting a YouTube at this point, but here I am. That being said, I don't think you can ever be too old to start doing something like this. This is something that's kind of been holding me back from actually taking the leap. Being that, I'm 30. Is this too late to start? Am I going to have a place? And then you watch other people that are doing YouTube and you realize that they're kind of in their 30s, and it kind of makes you think maybe this isn't going to be as bad as I thought. But my interests are gaming, film, music, wrestling, all things that I'm going to want to be talking about on this channel. Yeah, this channel, it's going to be a little bit all over the place for a little bit because I want to be doing as much as possible. Because I turned 30 last year and I just thought to myself, I've done basically nothing since I finished uni. I was just a bit I've not done anything with my life. I need to start doing something. I just wanted to make something of my life after basically going through the motions for 9 years. So yeah, basically I want to be doing as much as I can, covering as much content as possible. If things stick, then great. If there's some things I don't do as well, maybe at some point I can just drop it, or maybe come up with something else. But obviously that 9 years is hanging over my head whilst I'm doing this whole thing, so I want to be making sure that I'm doing as much as possible, trying to make up for lost time. Because I've wanted to do YouTube since I was 20, sort of whilst I was in the middle of uni. Because I was watching this YouTuber called Jev, and seeing how well he was doing, and he was getting all these subscribers, all these views, playing Call of Duty all the time, and all these other games, Dora the Explorer of all things. And I thought to myself, I'd love to do this, but I just lacked confidence at the time. Confidence that over the years I've managed to build up to the point of me actually sitting down to do this. And there was also just the case of, what if this doesn't work? I'm worried about having to edit everything together, and just a variety of things that have held me back. Yeah, the whole idea really picked up steam though in, I want to say, September, October of 2024. I know what you're thinking, it's 2026, what the fuck have I been doing all year? I'll get to it, don't worry. But something big happened in 2024, and I knew for a fact that I wanted to do this, but I knew that I had to be ready to do this. And on top of that, there's things that, sort of held me back from doing it. Do a customer service job. Yeah, I'm thinking September, October, I'm going to do this when I'm ready, and then guess what? Christmas hits, and I'm just busy all the time, and then, January hits, it's my birthday, New Year and everything, and then I had surgery last year, which, again, just put a hold on things. There was some issues at work, which I might get told off for just saying that one. Oh well. There was specific, dates and anniversaries of things that happened, and it's not like I've not been doing anything in like all this time. Like I've basically got a full library of videos that I can upload. I started recording back in, I want to say May. So I've got what, like, well, essentially I've just got like a shitload of videos like recorded and sort of just waiting to get the finishing touches on and go. I wanted to do that because I knew that that would help. Now, I'm still going to upload a lot of these old videos that I've done, but just want it to kind of demonstrate that, you know, everybody has to start from somewhere, you know? Because I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people like me that are going to be nervous about doing something like this. They might think, you know, I'm not going to be good at this. Like, I wasn't either. And you're going to see this in some of the videos that I'm going to end up dropping, but hopefully it can just demonstrate to people, you know, like, you've got to start from somewhere, you know, you're not just going to pick up a fucking camera from your local shop, put it on and then start recording, and you're just going to be like any of the big YouTubers, you know, have the experience that these YouTubers over like the last 10 years have accumulated, you know, like, I just wanted to present everything from a bit of a realistic perspective. I had to start from somewhere. There's going to be the odd video every now and again where it's going to be like a very early video, and if you watch that and then watch the next video, you're going to see sort of like night and day how much I've improved in talking on the camera, how much more confident that I now sound on camera, and hopefully that might encourage other people, you know, to take that leap, to do this, you know, like, I'm 30 for fuck's sake, you know, if I can do it at 30, anybody can do it, you know, at any point. Now, obviously I've said what I've wanted to cover on this channel, so what I'm going to aim to do is to try and stick to as close of a daily upload schedule as possible. Again, I work a job outside of doing this, so there are going to be days where it's not possible. You know, even if I decide to, on the days I can't record, just edit a video together that I've got saved on here and post it straight out, eventually they're going to run out. So I can't promise that the daily upload schedule is going to be held down to an absolute T. There are going to be days that I'm going to miss, you know. These things can happen, you know. Even the YouTubers that upload every single day, they even miss days, you know. But that's what I'm wanting to do. In terms of where I hope to go with this, I've tried to keep my expectations tempered. Yeah, I didn't come to record this video today thinking about down the line, you know, having like millions of subscribers, you know, being rich and famous, like, because if I'm honest, I'm not really interested in fame and fortune, you know. Me doing this is just something that I want to do at this point. If it becomes a full-time job for me, great, you know, like, I would love to do something like this as a full-time job. So the ideas for the topics that I'm going to be doing, so obviously I'm going to want to be doing gaming videos, playing, you know, whatever's not necessarily popular, but just playing games that I enjoy playing, you know. I know it's got a bit of a bad reputation at the moment, but Call of Duty is going to be a game that I'm going to want to be doing on this channel, you know. There's a new Resident Evil game coming out soon. That would be quite fun to, you know, do a playthrough of that. In terms of wrestling, you know, I'm going to be wanting to do things like, you know, weekly reviews of like all the shows, which I'm going to try and just compress into one video, because if I try and do it, you know, it's just going to make it more difficult to juggle everything. In terms of music, music's something that I've always been interested in. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want to be doing with that. I do want to get into making music, so maybe I could do videos on me making a song or something, I don't know. I've toyed with the idea of doing music reactions, but I think if I was going to do that, I think I'd want it to be its own separate channel, just because there's like so much music that's always coming out. Plus, with all like the monetization issues with music reactions, I think it would be better if I just had a channel that was dedicated to that, which I could just switch off monetization for off just altogether. And in terms of like movies and stuff, so I've got a few videos that are already done on here, basically of like how I would make a certain film, you know, like how I would make a sequel to a film. So for example, I've got things like, yeah, how I would redo the Star Wars trilogy, yeah, how I would redo the Jurassic World Dominion film, yeah, how I would do a sequel to the 99 Godzilla film, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I feel like I've come up with a way to make it work and for it to become something that people could then think, oh, do you know what? That actually sounds really good, you know? Don't want to toot my own horn too much, but yeah. And just with like other things, I probably just want to talk about, you know, life. You know, I've got, you know, stories I could tell, you know, being 30 and all, you know, I've got 30 years worth of experiences that I could share on here. You know, maybe talk about, you know, work life, work related things. Although I'd have to be careful with that one because, yeah, if I upload something saying something, you know, that my employer, for example, wouldn't like, I can imagine myself getting in trouble for it. It happens to people. I'm going to be trying to be careful about what I say, you know, to a certain extent. There will be something big coming down the line, though. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, but yeah, I think that's everything I want to cover for now. You know, as soon as I've uploaded this, you know, like that's a big hurdle out of the way. Basically, I can just start uploading, you know, normal videos, you know, gaming videos, wrestling videos, you know, music videos. So if you've clicked on this for whatever reason, thank you for watching. You know, it's much appreciated. And see you in the next one.